This content is about mindset. This is the work of Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University, and you can see here it relates to the extent to which you believe you can accomplish something. So we're having a lot of similar ideas here. So a couple of quotes to start. Don't tell me how talented you are. Tell me how hard you work. Arthur Rubinstein, a pianist. And Albert Einstein. It's not that I'm so smart, it's that I stay with problems longer. And so this is the idea that Carol Dweck is getting at in her work. We go back to attributions, which we had in our last chapter. Attributions, again, are explanations that are used for things that happen. So we can have, you look at this four-dimensional array here, and we say that we can look at internal uncontrollable dimensions. This is a new dimension that we're adding to the model that we looked at previously. So an internal attribution are blaming a situation on things that are inside of the self, and uncontrollable is something that you can't control about that. So ability, we often think that our abilities or talents are inborn, therefore they are inside us, so they're internal, but they're uncontrollable because they're born in us. And this is as opposed to an internal attribution that is controllable, so which is effective effort, trying. We can control how much effort we put forth, and that would be inside ourselves. We could also look at external factors that are uncontrollable, such as task difficulty. We can't do anything about how difficult a task is. It's uncontrollable and it's outside of the self. As opposed to perhaps external controllable, might be controllable, which is teacher approval. The teacher may not automatically approve of you, but you could probably do things to gain approval if you were inclined to do so. So some beliefs about the self. I'm just not good at blank. My mom wasn't good at it either. It just runs in my family. I've always been like this. I'm too old to learn blank. I've never been able to blank. I don't really have a good mind for blank. I'm not a blank person. I'm not a math person. So these are the examples of things we can say that represent attributions that might impede our own ability to grow and learn. So what difference do attributions make? Well, let's imagine that something happens and we make an explanation for why it happened, and that causes us to behave in a certain way. For example, let's imagine the event is we ace a test. Our attribution or our explanation is I worked hard. What's our behavior going to be? We're going to work hard again. We've learned. It's an internal controllable attribution. What if the event is we ace the test and the attribution is I got lucky? Then the subsequent behavior, the most we can do is to hope for luck again. So that's not a very promising situation. It's external and uncontrollable. What if we ace the test and the attribution is I'm smart, and we view smartness as a talent, something we're born with? That would be considered an internal uncontrollable attribution, and our behavior is we would expect to do well again. We would just expect that to happen. Why? Well, because I'm smart. That's why. So now let's play this out a little bit. So what happens if you fail? So the event is you ace the test. Your attribution is I'm smart. And your behavior, you expect to do well again because you're smart. And let's say this happens to you a lot. It happens to you in elementary school. You're doing really well. You don't work very hard. You just keep doing well because you're smart. It happens again and again and again. Now it's ingrained. It's a part of you. You believe that you should do well because of this trait that you possess that you were born with, the trait of smartness. And there it is, repeating itself, becoming an ingrained habit. Now what happens if you attempt a really challenging task? So for example, you graduate from elementary school and go to middle school. Graduate from middle school, go to high school. Graduate from high school, go to college. Or you just get a really challenging teacher or the math that the content just gets more challenging. Now, all along, your attribution has been, I'm smart. And now all of a sudden you fail a test. Before you've always aced the test. Now you fail the test. What's your attribution? If your attribution for passing the test is, I'm smart, what's the only attribution you can make for failing the test? Probably it's opposite. I guess I'm not so smart after all. And what behavior does that lead to? Well, you expect to do well because you're smart. If you're not smart enough, I guess you better quit the class, right? You better drop. You're not doing well. So you can see how this attribution habit, internal uncontrollable attributions, can lead to failure and withdrawal from tasks. On the other hand, if your attribution habit is I worked hard and your behavior is work hard again, you continue to work hard and learn to work hard again. It's internal controllable, and now you've attempted a really challenging task, and oh boy, you failed. Your attribution? Well, in the past, you've attributed your success to working hard. What's your attribution? I guess I didn't work hard enough. What's your behavior if you want to pass? I better work harder. This brings us to Carol Dweck's concept of mindset. And mindset refers to the underlying beliefs people have about learning and intelligence. When students believe they can get smarter and they understand that effort makes them stronger, that leads them to put in extra time and effort, and this in turn leads to higher achievement. So there are two types that Carol Dweck tends to identify. Type 1 has a fixed mindset, and that is a belief that one's basic qualities, like intelligence or talent, are just fixed traits that cannot be changed. You are the way you are. You're either good at math or you're not. That's fixed. And this restricts individuals' capacity to develop their own potentials. And that's opposed to a growth mindset, which is a belief that one's basic abilities, like your brains and talents, are a starting point that can be developed through dedication and hard work, enhancing resiliency and love of learning. The idea that you're versatile, flexible, that you can continue learning. Other people, and you'll see in your personality test that we have thought about these sometimes on a continuum, that in some areas you might still be stuck in a fixed mindset. In other areas you might be very much in a growth mindset, and that there may be steps along the way. So to distinguish a little more between these two mindsets, the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And you can see the growth mindset is moving up, moving forward. The fixed mindset is sort of static or moving back. So the person with a growth mindset might think failure. How are they going to look on failure? Failure is an opportunity to grow. As opposed to failure is the limit of my abilities. Oh, that means I can't do any more. I've reached my maximum. These are the distinctions. In the growth mindset, someone might think I can learn to do anything I want, whereas someone with a fixed mindset might say, I'm either good at it or I'm not. Challenges help me grow versus I don't like to be challenged. My abilities are unchanging. I either can do it or I can't. My effort and attitude determine my abilities versus my potential is predetermined. Feedback is constructive. Feedback is helpful. I like to hear it so I can learn and grow. Versus feedback and criticism are personal. I should defend myself. I am inspired by the success of others versus, well, sometimes people in this mindset feel like other people's success threatens me because then my self-esteem is harmed. And in the growth mindset, I like to try new things versus I stick to what I know. So these are some examples of the differences in these mindsets. So how do we develop a mindset? We've already looked at a couple of different examples of this about how we learn some of these things. So here we're going to look at a study that Carol Dweck did with 5th grade children. So this was the protocol. First, 5th grade students took a moderate math test at which they could reasonably be expected to have success. So there's the students taking this math test. Then they received success feedback in one of 3 conditions. They were either praised for their intelligence, oh, you must be really smart. Praised for effort, you must have worked very hard. Or a control, where they were just told what they got right and not given any information about why that might have occurred. Thirdly, they were given a second math test that was much harder. So they've heard this feedback. We know their first test scores. They got their feedback, and now they have a much harder test. And then after that, they were asked to write a letter divulging the scores to another student who was ostensibly going to take the test. Now, I'm going to show you, you'll see a little clip. I can't embed it into the slideshow, but you will see it, and you should watch it. It's just 3 minutes long, and it shows some of the responses of the children. So this is what happened. Students who were praised for intelligence, let's orient to this a little bit actually. So this is trial 1, that first math test. This is trial 3, that harder math test. The solid line with the box refers to those who were praised for intelligence. The control group with the diamonds is those who were in the control group, and the ones who were praised for effort, you must have worked very hard, are represented in this line with the circles. This is the number of problems solved. Students who were praised for intelligence, you can see they did worse on the harder test. It's like they gave up. I guess I'm reached my cap, not very smart on this stuff. Whereas those who were praised for effort continued working and did much better, even than the control group. So they came to realize, it seems, that their effort was what made the difference. So we can see some really different outcomes depending on how you attribute your success or failure. Students who were praised for intelligence were far more likely to lie about their test score than students in the effort or control groups. Here's this group that was praised for intelligence, and look at this. This is the proportion of children, almost 40% of children lied about their scores, as opposed to the control or the effort group. And that's because if they're told you did well because you're smart, then they have to infer that they're not very smart, and that's linked to their identity. So now we have an ego-threatening situation, and so lying becomes the only way to preserve that ego. So this is the video that you'll be watching. So mindset cycles then. It's sort of reciprocal. So you have a challenge or a failure to deal with, something really hard that you have to do, or you failed at something. If you have a growth mindset, then you're led to increase your effort or try new strategies. That leads to higher achievement, and then you're reinforced for what just happened, and your growth mindset gets stronger. So there we go. If you have a fixed mindset and you experience that same challenge or failure, then in the face of maxing out your abilities, you reduce effort and withdraw. And consequently, you have lower achievement because you don't learn. And this in turn reinforces your fixed mindset that you're not good enough. So changing cognitions can make a big difference. And the last thing we'll be doing in this content is you'll be watching a nice little 10-minute video, The Power of Yet, by Carol Dweck at Stanford University. And just in a nutshell, it's the power of saying, I haven't quite learned that yet, instead of, no, I failed. So I hope you enjoy the video as well as this content, and we will